Good morning, everyone. It's Monday, June the 29th, and welcome to 7 Investing Live. This is our live stream event where we focus on several of the stock market's most intriguing opportunities. My name is Simon Erickson. I'm founder of 7 Investing. I'm joined by Heather Horton, the executive producer of our 7 Investing live stream show. And when I say innovative opportunities, this is certainly a show that's going to tap into that here this morning, because we're going to be looking at the watch list on 7 Investing. Every month we find new ideas that we're not quite ready, perhaps, to immediately make an official recommendation on. We need to season them first. We need to vet these companies. We see something intriguing and innovative, but it perhaps needs a little bit more research before we're ready to stick our neck out there and make it officially on the scorecard. Heather, that's exactly where we're going here today. We're going into the micro cap quantum computing pond. We're going to talk about a company called Arqit Quantum. ARQQ. This is a $500 million approximately market capitalization in one of the fastest growing and most exciting fields of quantum computing. But there's also a whole lot of risks that before we jump in and say YOLO, hoorah, let's go back up the truck and buy a ton of shares of this company, we need to be aware of those as well. I am pretty excited about this show. I love kind of looking at early stage ideas like this. Ready to talk this morning about Arqit Quantum with you.
I'm really excited to learn about this one. Quantum computing is such a just fascinating place right now.
We've talked, you and I, quite a bit about this. We talked mostly in previous shows about the opportunities for quantum computing. We see how this is not just traditional computing. This is not classical computer. These are computers that use completely different set of rules to solve the most complex and computationally heavy problems. And so you think in your mind, what is the possibilities of what a quantum computer do? We always kind of go after the same ideas, right? We go after drug discovery. We've got all these molecules interacting. How is the protein folding, or the things that you're developing for pharmaceutical drugs going to be impacted by an unlimited number of inputs you need to start modeling out into these simulations? We start talking about in operations. If you're going to have a very complex global supply chain, perhaps it's for transportation where there's different weather patterns and different things going out there. How can you model all of those things? Maybe you're doing design. Maybe you're wanting to build a more efficient grid for energy in the United States that's not going to have those electrical or resistance losses, or a new alloy that can be used for a super specific application. We've been somewhat limited in how we've been able to do all of these things in the past. Perhaps a quantum computer could solve for this by using a very, very large number of inputs and then solving them all at the exact same time to come up with the most optimal solutions. And so we always talk about quantum in the positive sense. We talk about the innovative sense. We talk about where is quantum going to bring the world and the future of research and development. It's very exciting. However, we also have to be realistic when we're looking at really, really big innovations like this so far and say, hey, there's probably going to be some issues and some needs in this brand new innovative market that need to be addressed. There's the picks and shovel suppliers, if you will, that pick up and find those small opportunities of needs that need to be met, and they go out and then solve them, and then they scale them up very, very quickly to keep up with the demand that's being created. For anyone who's followed the last 20 years of computing, we saw cloud computing. Now we're seeing AI. Think about all the picks and shovel companies that have made billions of dollars for their investors who got in early for those opportunities, for these necessary innovations that filled the gaps as these ecosystems began developing. That's where we are in quantum computing here today. That's why I want to talk about Arqit, because Arqit has developed a very, very niche solution. Let's put up a couple of images and a couple of perhaps descriptions to put some words to this storyline of what they're doing out there. One of the limitations in quantum computing itself is in cryptography itself, encryption specifically of security keys. There is a huge risk and a huge threat that the world's encryption today, everything that is stored across the internet, any information that is encrypted across the internet, cannot easily be broken right now. Encryption right now is solving these very complex mathematical formulas between the multiplication of prime numbers that encrypts information that traditional computers just can't do. It's too complex of a calculation. It's going to take too long for them to do it. And so the traditional, encryption keys that are out there on the internet today, they work. They work fine in a classical computing world. However, if we are now producing quantum computers at scale, a quantum computer, in addition to doing all of those other applications we described earlier at hyper speed and a much, much faster computation than a classical computer can do, could a quantum computer break encryption? Could a quantum computer steal information that is being transferred over the internet today that is encrypted by traditional keys? Yes, in theory it could. And so this is one of those big things of, how do you actually have safe information in the world of a quantum? And so Arqit has recognized this issue. They founded the company back in 2017, and they said, I think that by the year 2027, the traditional PKI encryption is going to be broken by a quantum computer. It's going to be compromised. All the security of the internet needs to be fixed. We're going to have some new protocols that are going to fix this and some new regulations that are going to protect it. And so the founder, David Williams, comes out and he says, hey, we think that the right approach to build this is going to be something called symmetric key encryption, where basically what they're doing is in the moment, they're creating a whole bunch of different encryption keys, real time, that could not be easily solved or decrypted by a quantum computer. And this is the approach that they're going to take. One technology to re-securing the information that's being sent out there, change the encryption methodology, have it be quantum safe, and the protocols that they would follow. And they called this the QuantumCloud. This was the technology they developed about a decade ago. And so the company comes out and they created a new protocol, ARQ19, for those that are familiar with this. And they wanted to integrate this into the quantum cloud itself, a protocol that would build into the rest of the internet if you wanted to be quantum safe. There's quantum cloud right now, securing devices everywhere with cloud-based quantum encryption. And in 2021, the company actually comes public. They actually had a really supersized SPAC IPO. For those who remember the SPACs, this was the summer of SPACs in 2021. Arqit did exactly the same thing. They went out there and raised a whole bunch of money. They raised $400 million at a $1.4 billion market capitalization. Really cool, really neat stuff they were doing. Raised a whole lot of money at a pretty impressive valuation. Now, there was a problem with this. I'm going to drink some coffee in a moment here and let everyone kind of see where I'm going with this. And Heather, I'll open it to you to supply some thoughts on this as well. But the company did not have a commercial product ready yet. They had a prototype. They had an idea. They saw the market need developing, that you had to have secure transmission of data in a quantum world. And they said, hey, we're going to do this. We're going to solve this. We've got something that we're working on here. This was not something that was widely vetted yet. This was not something that was commercially ready yet. This was just a really neat software code that they had in line and a really cool technology that was certainly not commercial in any way, shape, or form. They go out there and they raise $400 million. You can already tell where this is going to create some problems for the commercial world of investors. And the problem was they were perhaps overstating their capabilities far in advance of what they were actually delivering. I'll pause for a moment there. I'll drink a little bit more caffeine. I am nerding out and loving this, but please share some thoughts about what Arqit did back in 2021.
The summer of SPACs, that brings back memories. That was, I also think there was a certain level of just so many things were coming online, so many SPACs were happening, that it was a little easier for things to there was a hype cycle almost that summer. And I think that definitely caused some problems. And you're always going to have an issue when a company is coming public without an actual product, because if it's an idea, not the final product, you don't have the numbers. You don't know what it's going to cost. You don't know the realities of it. And it's really easy, especially in a space like quantum computing, where most people don't know what that means. They just know it's different and better, probably in some ways. And it's pretty wild. You use quantum entanglement. So instead of something being a yes or no, a 1 or 0, a bit, they can be either. And it processes being like, what if every single variable was maybe both? I think that is correct. I am not a quantum physicist. That is what I've read.
Spot on. Superposition. Nailed it.
Thank you. I do like this stuff. I read about it a lot. And so, but when you're just saying, like, people gloss over and you say quantum and they're just like, yeah, sure, that sounds really cool. And then you're going to get into trouble as investors because you're not investing in what you know, because very few people know this stuff.
Absolutely. Very few people do know this. And the way that you have something that is a neat idea and a narrative, you have to qualify it next. You have to show we are doing what we say we're going to do. Otherwise, like you said, very few people, you accept the narrative, okay, you're going to protect every device in the entire world from being quantum attacked. You go out there and you say something like that. And, this is getting a lot of people very excited about that. Here you go. Mr. Williams, that's Mr. David Williams. He is the founder and previous CEO of Arqit Quantum, comes out there and he says the technology can solve the problems of a quantum attack, quote, for every connected device in the world. And that means that Arqit's business is now suitable for hyperscale growth. Okay, awesome if you want to go out there and raise $400 million, which they did. However, you have to back it up when you make a statement like that. And Arqit was nowhere near securing every connected device in the world from quantum attacks. We didn't even know what quantum attacks were going to look like yet. So when you make a statement like that, pull it back a little bit, Mr. Williams. This is a really, really bold statement to make. And so actually what happened next was exactly what's supposed to happen next. British cybersecurity research organizations went out there and they started to vet Arqit's solution. Now, they didn't completely deride it. They didn't say there's nothing here, but they did do exactly what you would hope that they would do, which would say this is not commercial ready. This is a prototype and is certainly not ready to protect every device in the entire world. You'd have to change all of the internet protocols and all of the encryption protocols that are being used globally across the internet right now to conform to the way that Arqit is wanting to do this symmetric encryption key technology. So Mr. Williams took offense by that, actually said some mean things, we can say it that, about the British group that was doing this evaluation. And it ended up kind of having him need to be removed as the CEO of this company. I won't get into it more than that, Heather. We can let anyone do the research on the internet if they'd like to find out what was said out there. But this is what happens 3 years later. A few years later after the IPO, you now see Arqit announces the leadership transition. The co-founder and current CEO, David Williams, steps down. You've now got their new incoming CEO coming in. Andy Lever is actually a pretty good long-term hardware businessman, an engineer that kind of turned business. Andy Lever's, the new CEO that was coming in here. He's done quite well, but this is a big deal when you have a company that raises a lot of money and then the founder and CEO steps down a couple years later. This is a necessary transition. I think that what's going on here is Arqit wants to show some credibility in the market, that you've got somebody that went out there and built this idea and took advantage of finding an opportunity in the market that needed a solution to address it. Got a lot of people very excited about it, but I think that kind of took a step back when you get a little bit too hyperbolic in the statements that you're making. Now let's go out and let's bring in the engineer. Let's bring in the technical person that's going to say, hey, look, we're not going to secure every device in the entire world from quantum attacks today, but here's what we've got. This is the technology we have in place. And now I want to start signing some partnerships with some other partners and some other customers, and also the academics to say, this is where we're at right now. Let's grow this business at the pace it's supposed to be growing. That's how I interpret where Arqit is today. They raised some money. They have plenty of money to fund the business right now. A lot of it right now has been in getting the patents in place. They are a patent protected technology. They now also don't just have that initial quantum cloud. They've now built out other applications as well. One of the most recent ones is the encryption that they have. That's a real-time encryption algorithm that they're going to actually using for real-time kind of end-to-end encryption for quantum attacks. It is monitoring continually the information that's being sent in and out of networks to make sure that it is quantum safe at the time. And they've integrated this not only with their own, but also with other partners out there. They're working with Intel right now, is a channel partner that said, hey, we're onto something here. We're going to put this into our accelerators, into our hardwares to make sure that the information that's going across them is quantum safe. More of monitoring at this point, and then working with other partners, security companies, other channel partners to actually make sure the end solution is also quantum safe. There's one more thing that's very important in this. As I pull up the timeline, bear with me one moment on this. There is a timeline that is you have to be compliant for certain different quantum, the post-quantum world that's going to be coming in for the migrations out there. We're calling this post-quantum cryptography migrations. And this is being pushed by the National Institute of Standards and Technology in the United States, mandating all American federal agencies to have post-quantum cryptography migrations to the latest standards no later than December 2030. There's similar timelines in existence for the regulators and the government agencies of the for the United Kingdom as well. That's a mouthful. Maybe I step back and explain what's going on. If you're a federal agency, you have to be ready for quantum computing threats and attacks and breaches by the year 2030, no later than the last day of 2030. Probably sooner than that, being that we're in 2026 here today, that's 4 years up. You just have to start preparing for this in advance today. So if you're a good federal agency or you're a large telecom communications company right now, what do? You don't go out there and say, hey, we're overhauling everything today or tomorrow. You start vetting. You start doing some demonstrations, maybe some pilot tests. you start using some of these technologies, figuring out how you would apply that within your current infrastructure that you have. That's exactly kind of where we're seeing right now. You've got some telecommunication companies in the United States. You've got some British defense agencies that are now qualifying this quantum safe technology that Arqit has had out there. And that's where the business stands here today. And as I kind of pull this all together, let's look at the results we got for the first half of 2026 that Arqit just reported. Again, a very, very small company, less than $500 million market capitalization today. And not surprisingly, because the first half of 2026 revenue, this might be the smallest number we've ever shown on this show, Heather, was $623,000. That is not $1 million. That is not $1 billion business. This is a company that's still operating in 6 digits. Very, very small. That's for the first half of the fiscal year 2026. But the intriguing piece is, if you look at the similar time frame from 2025, they did $67,000 in the first half of that year, right? This is a business that's much smaller than 7investing is. That's a publicly traded company that's now worth $500 million. And yet it grew 10x year over year. How did it do that? Well, it's got some commercial launches of its new Encryption Intelligence, that end-to-end solution we just talked about out there. They've also went from having 7 contracts in place for full fiscal year 2025 to 11 here in the first half of the fiscal year 2026. Some of these are actually really, really large customers, right? Intel, that trust domain extension that we said that they're integrating into their own environments, as also 6one and RAD, which are, kind of cybersecurity companies that they're using as channel partners out there to launch this new Encryption Intelligence end-to-end that they've got out there. Heather, I know that you and your family have looked at cybersecurity for a long time. Quantum computing is coming. This is happening. You have to have this lock safe out there. You can't just have, all of these moats and these alarm systems and everything built out for the front of your networks and your encrypted devices and all of the endpoints out there. And then you just have quantum computing sneak in through the window that was unprotected in the back of the house. This is a complex world. This is a fast-moving world out there. We're already discussing if quantum goes mainstream, if people start using quantum computing, there's some information that's very sensitive that you need to protect with quantum. I think it's very interesting. I think this is the right time to start having those conversations. You've already got the timelines in place for federal agencies to adopt this. We know that once stuff goes federal, you've got commercial that's not that long after that that's going to adopt this as well. I think just overall, this is a company that's in the right place at the right time. And there's a ton of risks, but let me tell you, as an early stage investor, I'm intrigued right now.
I am very intrigued as well. I am glad to see that there is a timeline for getting quantum security up and running. We didn't really see that as well with kind of cloud computing like the 2010s. Things, we had multiple huge government breaches, a lot of companies had big breaches, and there was questionable security for the new technology at that point, and none of that was as game-changing as quantum's going to be. And I don't know if quantum will become completely mainstream, but it is so powerful. It is definitely going to become an option. Like, I can't see a world where quantum computing just fizzles out. It's so powerful in comparison to what we have now. And so there will be risks because there will be options for bad actors. So you need companies like this that are coming in and making some solution for that. And I think it is really a fun, interesting time to start investing. I might add this to my basket of quantum stocks because
it's neat. And, it goes from, like we said, from technology, we're kind of still in the research world, and you start seeing some companies go public, raise some money, and then it's a question of like, what's actually going to work out there, right? And I think this is the most interesting part of early stage investing is it's not just what the financial statement says. You want to be a step ahead of when this hits the income statement. You want to look at what's going on out there, because then 6 months down the road, 12 months down the road, that's where you start seeing the progress. We saw that with IonQ. We were quick to tap IonQ because we saw, a grant from DARPA that went to for this. We saw the Air Force put $50 million to work to start, assessing what these quantum computers can do, these ion trapping quantum computers can do. Now, if we start seeing those deployed, we're going to start seeing, some chinks in the armor, if so to speak. Where are the issues that we've got to fix if we're going to start going to scale with this? Of course, cybersecurity being one of those. You want to have quantum safe encryption if you're going to have quantum computers out there doing their thing as well. And this is not just a U.S. thing too. This is globally too, right? This is something of national security interest for the United States protect. So I think this is interesting. I am not ready, like I said, to just go all in and put all my money into Arqit Quantum here today. This is a very, very small micro cap, huge risk, especially with the CEO stepping down, the founder steps down. I mean, that's a huge red flag for anybody. But I do like that they're in the right place at the right time. You're starting to see those evaluations. Perhaps there is something to this technology that's going to go out there and be successful. But again, there's nothing wrong with taking a basket approach to this too, because quantum itself is such an early field. We do not know who the true winners in this are going to be just yet.
Yeah, with stocks like this, I'm a huge basket fan because you can have 10 stocks and all but one of them go to zero in your basket and one does really well. And this early with this little certainty, not that there is any certainty in the stock market really, I do think that I would not just choose one quantum computing stock and go all in. I have not done that. I think it's really good to diversify across, and this might be a situation where it's fun to start slowly adding to some of these stocks. So you're watching them, you're thinking about them, you know about them, you have skin in the game, but you add to the winners over time and you can start trimming out as we start to see what's working and what isn't.
That is exactly how the math works out. The basket approach, it's okay. This is counterintuitive for us as human beings. We don't like to lose money. We don't like to actually invest in an early stage company and then it doesn't work out and it goes to zero. That hurts, right? That's why we don't say go YOLO and put all your money in. But if you have a basket early stage, you are going to, in this field of quantum computing, you're going to have 10 baggers that are going to come out of that. You're going to probably have 20 baggers at this point of companies are going to go up 20 times your initial investment. You can have a lot of losers and still make a lot of money. The math works out if you catch early enough into this field. And I know this because at Rule Breakers, I did this, and my entire career, you find these opportunities early and it makes up for a lot of other losers because there's so much uncertainty, but someone is going to win in these niche fields of innovation. Perhaps Arqit is one of them. The reason we're doing this show today is because later this evening, I will be publishing the watch list to 7investing subscribers. Arqit Quantum is one of the two companies that's mentioned this. The other is called Quantinuum. QNT is the ticker on that one. A much larger business at a nearly $20 billion market capitalization that is going after building out this end-to-end ecosystem for quantum computing as a whole, rather than just kind of this small niche application like Arqit is doing. Quantinuum will also be on that watch list. We're featuring both of those two businesses on the watch list that's going to be published later this evening. If you would like access to that, to see the more in-depth, in the trenches research for both of these businesses, check out 7investing.com/subscribe. Again, you get 7 days absolutely free. If you join 7investing, it gives you access to all of our premium content, including tonight's watch list, including the research on both Arqit and Quantinuum, but then also the entire recommendation scorecard as well, and all of the best buys every month. I'd encourage you to check that out. Again, free test drive for your first 7 days, no risk, no strings attached, 7investing.com/subscribe. So today is June the 29th. Again, a fun conversation today that we had about Arqit Quantum. Again, ARQQ. For anyone who wants to follow along with that one, we're going to take off on Wednesday. That's going to be the 1st of July. So we're going to have the new recommendation hit the scorecard there on Wednesday, and then on Friday we're going to come back and have a special guest. Brett Schaefer is going to be joining us from Chit Chat Stock. So always a fun conversation with him as well. In the meantime, enjoy Quantum, enjoy Arqit Quantum. I hope you have a wonderful week, and we will see you again on Friday.